Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Microsoft Azure AD Verifiable Credentials. I'm Yasmin Alamango, the Marketing Manager at Condatis. Your host for today is our very own Head of Accounts, Ian Waters. Ian will be joined by a very special guest of ours, Senior Program Manager Rohit Gulati at the Identity Engineering team at Microsoft. This session will be recorded and you'll receive an email from me with the link to the recording when it's ready. So if you have any questions along the way, just pop them into the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end. So let's get started. Ian, go for it.
Thank you, Yaz, and good afternoon, everyone. Good morning if you're listening later on. So at Condatis, we're an identity specialist and we're a Microsoft partner. And I guess we help organizations in two particular ways. We help folk with their identity journey. So first and foremost, we help people achieve, if you like, a modern professional approach to identity and access management. And quite typically for us, that's with Microsoft Azure and external identity, so customer identity and access management. And secondly, we help organizations, particularly with today's topic, around understanding decentralized identity and how it can be essentially leveraged to solve other business problems. So with more on this, and I'm thrilled to be joined with Rohit today, we're going to take a deep dive into the world of Azure Verifiable Credentials. So Rohit, over to you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, yes. Good day, everyone, and thank you for dialing in. As I was speaking to the Condatis team, I think it's a great opportunity for all of you to listen in what Microsoft is doing in this space. And I would cover a section of slide. I'll also cover why we started thinking about it. So let me start with that as a context. And then, Ian, let's do a kind of an interaction. I'll ask you to chime in and share your thoughts as well as we go through the deck, right? So starting with the standard stuff, and I'm sure most of you are listening in, you are into this identity space for years and years. But if I have to make it a very generic thing, if you look at the way we deal with identity in both our professional space and personal space, you'll find some common trends. As a human, I have this tendency of creating a common pattern of passwords. And maybe I may get a username different in a particular app, but I may have this tendency of creating the same password in multiple environments. And if I would ask you, can you tell me in the last 7 days, what all apps you have used, what all sites you have used, what all those sites where you have authenticated yourself against that particular environment? I think it's very difficult. And if I have to ask you, is there an option available for you to control your identity in a way that you can revoke your access as a user from that platform? I think it's not possible in the current model when we talk about centralized identity. What we're trying to share here is when we look at such models and we look at these patterns where users are using common patterns for creating passwords, it actually can bring to these issues like identity leak and password compromises. So with that as a problem statement, Microsoft started working on this space almost 4 years ago, and we reached out to various customer personas. And I'm going to start by sharing some thoughts. This slide talks about 3 personas. As an individual, how do I look at my identity? I can give you an example. I think a few months back when there was some news about WhatsApp changing their privacy norms, I think most of us thought about, hey, can we move to this new app called Signal? And that way we will be in a better state because I will have a better control of my data. As an organization, when I look at that second persona, as an organization, I have a set of federated apps in my setup. As an administrator of that organization, I have established a data collaboration boundary, and I'm offering a secure collaborative access for my users. But what if I tell you that your CIO is telling you that by next Monday, you have to onboard 1,200 apps in the setup. Will it not be like a nightmare? It is just not about configuring the setup, but it's also about making sure the information that needs to be exchanged, there is a configuration model in place, you are establishing a secure collaboration boundary. All those things have to be thought through as you look at organization as a persona. And the last persona, the government and public sector customers, they deal with scenarios which are related to citizens, the G2C scenarios. A customer who from the public sector who reached out to us during our private preview days, they had this requirement of offering digital badges to refugees. And it's a problem where today the government wants to support that user segment, but that particular refugee has to carry a bunch of documents to get access to the service. Can we make this whole process simple? And also, while we are driving this kind of a model, can we make sure there is inclusivity, both on the social side as well as on the financial side? Condatis team also actually worked on one such scenario. Ian, would you like to share some thought of the work that you did with NHS?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rohit. So yeah, it's a fascinating one actually with the NHS. Obviously, with the last 12 plus months with the COVID pandemic, there's never been a more important time for health professionals to be available to treat patients and if you like, not be spending time doing administrative tasks in terms of verifying their identity and their training and medical qualifications. So absolutely, we've been working with the NHS to look at those use cases around faster onboarding. You know, can we get clinicians up and working on the wards and treating patients much more quickly, spending less downtime doing admin? And that's, you know, as I say, it's never been a more important time to enable that. And whilst we're thinking about these use cases of faster onboarding, access to applications, sensitive applications, another great use case in government and energy circles is with the Sellafield nuclear processing plant. So again, it's faster onboarding of this time highly skilled engineers and access to very sensitive applications. So what we call a digital staff passport, whether it's in a health setting or in an engineering setting, it's getting people to work faster in a more highly, if you like, secured way. And yeah, it's fantastic. We're seeing verifiable credentials now being applicable in multiple industries. So yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Ian. So building on that, Ian just shared two customer examples. On Microsoft side, we ran a survey with 3,000 customers, and we ran this survey across multiple customer segments as well, a large customer, a mid-sized customer, as well as the small and mid-segment customer. And when we analyzed that survey, we could pick up some trends from that survey. So 92% of the customers were telling us the same thing that Ian was highlighting for NHS and Sellafield. Like they were looking at this decentralized identity model solving their onboarding scenario problem, how they can make sure onboarding for employees, contractors, vendors can be done better, how they can offer secure access to critical apps within the environment, and which is something like as a customer you may face it today as well. Like if someone needs to have a time limited access and you would like to make sure that when you're offering access, doing some checks and things as well before you give access to that particular person. And can I bring in a model where I can offer self-service for an account update and recovery? Can I use my driving license to, for example, reset my enterprise password? These were the top 3 use cases we heard in that survey. Another interesting data point, we were asked like, as we work on these scenarios, can we make that scenario work in a safe manner? That means we are taking care of data integrity, we are making sure there is an identity verification model in place. Can we make that whole process fast? And can we make this whole process easy? That easy, it also covers that cost factor as well. Can we make this a low cost solution? And can we go with that theme like verify once and use everywhere? That's the tagline that you saw from us on the title slide as well. With these data points, we started working on Azure AD Verifiable Credentials. So Microsoft's implementation of decentralized identity is Azure AD Verifiable Credentials. And keeping the three vision pillars in mind, we also made sure that we are using a familiar application. So if you see my slide and the application snapshot that you see on the slide, I'm referring to the Microsoft Authenticator app. It's a commonly known app. Obviously, in the enterprise segment, customers who are using Office 365 would use it for multi-factor and passwordless scenario. But we can also see this being used in the personal space with MSA accounts and other options. So bringing the same experience and building on that, can we make sure as the user is using verifiable credentials model, we can bring in a setup which is transparent, where that what it means is, as a user, when I am accepting a credential or presenting a credential, I get a clear view of what is getting exchanged. And it is convenient as well for me. That means I can see a bunch of receipts which tells us where is this verifiable credential being exchanged and the timestamp next to it. So based on these principles, we did an announcement of this service as public preview in March during our Ignite timeframe. And from 2nd of April, it's available in Azure subscriptions as well as a public preview feature. I'm sure some of you know how this world of decentralized identity works, but let me just give a baseline so that all of us are at the same level. When we talk about decentralized identity, we talk about three actors in the story. We have an issuer, which in this example is represented by Woodgrove. We have a holder or a user, which is the actor in the middle. And then we have a verifier. Everything is revolved around the user in this model. So let's take a scenario. Let's say user is Rohit, and Rohit is moving from Woodgrove to Fabricam, Fabricam being a new employer. So Rohit in this case is asking Woodgrove, hey, can you give me a proof of employment letter in the form of a verifiable credential? And I would like to get that credential so that I can use it for my next employment. So in this whole process, as a user, I will reach out to Woodgrove and I will request that digital verifiable credential. So Woodgrove will accept that request and would look for an attestation model. Maybe in this case, the user is still in the directory and the user was asked to do IDP authentication or identity provider authentication. Once the user successfully authenticates to the identity provider, the Woodgrove would issue the credential to the user. Now, how does this model flow? If you look at this diagram, we as a issuer, the Woodgrove entity is issuing a verifiable credential to the user. It has properties like issued by, who it was issued to is called as subject. The claims, this is something as an issuer you can decide. Like in this case, the claims are the title and the claim type as since, and it was digitally signed by the private key of the issuer. What Woodgrove is doing, Woodgrove is digitally signing this credential and then publishing its public key on the ledger. As the user received that credential, user would store this credential in its wallet. Microsoft's implementation is the Authenticator app, the screenshot that you saw in the previous screen. The user will accept that credential, and now user is ready to publish that credential or present that credential to the verifier. As a verifier, when I am receiving that credential from the user, I would look at that credential and I will see, oh, it was digitally signed by the issuer as well as the subject. So I need to do a lookup of the public key material so that I can do public key, private key matching to accept and verify the credential. So as a user, when I presented that credential, verifier saw the digital signatures. Verifier would do a public key lookup on the ledger and then will, based on the matching, successfully accept the credential. So that's a very high level view of how this decentralized identity model works. As I said, Microsoft has been working on an open standard. So Microsoft's implementation of the standard is Azure AD Verifiable Credentials. So if I have to map the actors that I showed in the previous slide to the standard slide, you heard from me about the Authenticator app. That's the user agent that you can see in the middle. The user agent is making and receiving requests. It's using the OpenID Connect SIP. On the left-hand side of the diagram, you see an object called as a universal resolver. You can think of this actor like your name resolution box. In our conventional days, we think of name resolution being done by, let's say, a DNS server. Think of it like your name resolution kind of entity that helps you resolve and get to the public key information that the actors need in the setup. So I'll talk about what's the Microsoft implementation of Resolver, but you can try to keep that mapping in your head. This could be the DNS server in the world of DID. There's also something on the left called as Identity Hub. This is going through some changes in the open standard model. But you would see in the current implementation of Azure AD Verifiable Credential, we have not implemented Identity Hub yet. So as it goes through the evolution, we will look at it in the future. So this is a quick snapshot. Ian, anything you would like to add on the open standards model?
I guess, like yourselves, Microsoft, Rohit, we're also active members of these bodies, you know, in particular looking at the Decentralized Identity Foundation. It's so encouraging now to see so many different vendors and industries coming together to develop these open standards and protocols. And one of the areas that I know myself and colleagues are having some fun in really are the special interest groups and the working groups that are set up in, whether it be financial services or education. They're a great hotbed for learning and development and understanding of how verifiable credentials can be used in those industry settings. So long may that continue.
Great, thank you. So if you're interested, please do join the community. I think that's a great way for you to pick up what's happening in those special interest groups, and you can contribute to the diff as well. Building on this slide, and I want to show you the component view on the Azure AD VC side. So starting with the user agent, that's the Microsoft Authenticator app. We are hosting the verifiable credential API on our Azure regions. If you would like to know more, I will point you to our documentation of where it is and some of the recommendations around how you can start working on it, what goes on in terms of setting it up. If time permits, I'll give you a sneak preview. Otherwise, I'll share the link that you can read offline. I did talk about the resolver. We have the microservices in Kubernetes that is deployed in Azure data centers. You can run an iron node. Microsoft is running an iron node as well. It's on open standard. I'm running it on a Linux VM. A colleague of mine is running on a Raspberry Pi. So you could use that. We have a Docker image. You can install it on Windows or Ubuntu. And there is a GitHub repo that gives a guided model of how you can run an iron node. Think of it in a scenario. Let's say the previous Fabricam slide that I showed. A verifier is trying to do a lookup on the ledger and trying to get to the public key information. Let's say if that verifier does not have internet access, in that kind of a model, you may want to deploy an iron node which is local. That way your verifier is doing a local referral instead of going onto the internet on the iron nodes that are on the Microsoft data center or elsewhere. That's one thing you can think of. And obviously, as I was trying to create that mapping for you, like think of it like a DNS server, the way you would think of creating a high availability for DNS server, you may want to think of creating a high availability model for the iron nodes if you're deploying one in your setup. Okay, so with that, let me show you the Microsoft implementation. And if the time permits, I'll show you a quick experience as well. I do have an interesting demo to talk through, so we'll do that demo as well. So starting with what we have implemented, start on the issuer interface on the Azure AD Blade. You can bring in verifiable credential experience on the Azure AD side. For the current public preview, you need a P2 license. You just need one P2 license for bringing this service. In the background, as you start onboarding the service, you need a storage account as well as key vault service. Storage account to store the images, the display file, and the rules file. And the key vault that will be used to store the keys for issuers and the verifiers. On the developer tool side, we have a Node.js SDK. We have published the sample on GitHub. You can test the sample and you can be up and running in an hour, because that's the way you can just play with the sample. And obviously then you can modify the sample and work with us and Condatis team to go through various user journeys. The question that may come in your head is, what about the .NET sample and the Java SDK? The community at Diff is at the Node.js community, so that's why we started with Node.js SDK. But then about other platforms, we decided that we will make an API, we'll build an API, so that way you're making only one call for issuance and one call for verification. That's why you see API as an option for developer tools. And lastly, on the user side, Microsoft Authenticator app is using the Wallet SDK. The Wallet SDK is open standard. You can, though you can build your wallet, but Authenticator app gives us some capabilities like I can take a backup of my credentials, which is still not a model right now in the open standard. So you can use the SDK and bin your own wallet, but you can, in the Microsoft solution, we are using Authenticator app. Okay, so with that, let me just talk you through 3 scenarios and we'll do a set of demos. Starting with, you saw a survey statistic data point from me at the start. So onboarding scenario is mostly around how I can make sure the onboarding process is safe, better, and fast for not only for my employees, but for my vendors, partners, and customers. And when I am making that process safe, can I also bring in the element of verification? And think of that scenario. Let's say, think about your day one joining experience. I can talk about mine. I didn't have a good onboarding day one experience. I got an offer letter. I was told, hey, Rohit, can you complete the set of trainings? Here is a list of trainings that you need to complete. But you also need to upload a scanned copy of your passport. You will also have to carry a printout of this email so that security on day one can allow you in. carry a bunch of photocopies of your passport, someone will take that copy from you. And someone did take the copy, and I don't know what happened to that copy. And I waited, somebody came in, escorted me, and then somebody had to get me into the building, and somebody then gave me access to a shared PC. All in all, it was not a good experience. Can we make this better? The second scenario is around access to high value apps. Think of it like, let's say I'm the contractor and I'm supporting the financial department in your organization. As a part of the financial process, there is a critical app. I'm a contractor, not an employee. Can I get time limited access to that financial app? And as a part of that secure access, can I bring in a model of attestation? That is the second scenario. And third scenario, I forgot my password. In the enterprise space, I have a self-service model. I can use my one-time password. I can use the secret questions, security questions. I can use my FIDO key. But what if I would like to use my driving license to reset my enterprise password? So those kind of scenarios Microsoft is working on. I'll do a quick demonstration of the first scenario. I gave an example of my experience. This is a common experience with HR today. They will do onboarding. They will also have a background verification check process with some identity proofing solution. Some part of it could be automatic, some part of it could be still manual, and it's a very costly exercise. Going back to the original principle, can we make it cost effective? And can we make it the whole process digital? That's the demo I would like to show you now. So let me just bring in my browser in the session. And let's build on that. So all right, so I'll also bring in my mobile. That way I have mobile mirroring screen. That way I can show you how the user will go through this journey. So let me bring that experience as well. I'm using a screen mirroring app. So hopefully the demo gods will be with me today and we can make this work. Yep. Okay. All right, so I'm presenting a mirror screen of my phone and we'll go through this experience. So the same HR process, and I am showing you an experience where I got the offer letter. HR sent me an email. HR told me, hey, Rohit, can you complete the onboarding journey? For this demonstration, I'll be like Mike. So I'm Matthew Michael. I got the offer letter and we'll go through this process. So the onboarding portal is telling me to punch in my first name and last name. And the onboarding process says that, hey, you need to do a bunch of verification tasks, starting with identity verification. Microsoft has partnered with 8 identity proofing partners. You can find information for it on our public site. If you have an identity proofing solution that is not on the list, but you have a customer scenario, you can reach out to us. We have our contact aliases mentioned on the deck in the end, so you can pick up from there. Going and building on that scenario, I will launch the identity verification process, and I'm going through this identity verification solution. It's asking me to take a selfie. Obviously, I'm going to show some dummy data because of PII. So I'll take a selfie. Yeah, this is me. And I will upload my driving license. And some ID proofers can also ask you to blink your eye, move your head left and right so that they can do lively let's check. It is not someone that is presenting a static photo. And there could be other models as well, like chip scanning or documents verification. So with this sample, I was able to publish and get my data verified. what this application is telling me, hey, now I can verify you. You can now accept your digital credential. So I'm using my well-known app called Authenticator app, and I'm going to scan the QR code that is presented to me. Let me just make the screen view better. Yeah. So the app is telling me, hey, to get this credential, you need to put in the PIN. That way we can match and verify. So you can see it has verified that, yep, the PIN matches. I can click on add. For the element of transparency, you can see the credential info, the claims that were given to me by the identity proofer. I can also look at the receipt, like it was issued to me on a particular date. And now I have a credential that I can use. I can now go back to my onboarding portal and I can tell the system that, yeah, I have completed my verification. So I can go to the next step. But the application on the HR side is saying, hey, show me that you have the valid credential with you. I can scan this QR code again. And the application is saying that I would like to get claims from this credential. So you can see the level of transparency. User gets to know what the application is asking for. And if I double click on it, it will show me the credential that will be exchanged. So I'll click on allow. And it should, yep, it says request approved. And you can think of this process now in the background, the user's object can get created in the HR system, which can then flow into directory services like Azure AD. So the user presented the credential, which was from an identity verification partner, and this flow worked. Now it is taking this process to the next level. Hey Rohit, hey Matthew, would you like to accept a digital employee card? So I can scan this QR code and I can punch in my employee card to accept the credential. And I'll click on add. So now I've got a digital card from my identity verification solution as well as an employee card. The next step, I can use this digital card to get access to a building, to a shared PC, even to a non-federated application. Like what would be my day one activity? I will go to a site, which could be an intranet site, or I'll go to my IT department or to a public site to order myself a hardware. Can I bring in that experience as well? So if I click on one of the first application, so it is going to a non-federated app, prosware.com, and it's showing me the hardware that I can order. If you look at the link on the top, it says you can get access to corporate discount if you present your employee credential. So I can bring in that experience. I can scan my employee card, and once I click on allow, the application would verify whether I'm a Wood Group employee or not. And voila, you can see the application accepted the credential and it has applied the corporate discounts. And now I can order the hardware. So you can build a scenario like this. I just showed you a pre-hire onboarding workflow. So in your joiner, mover, leaver story, you can bring in that experience. It can be for employees, vendors, contractors, external identities. If you are using B2B, B2Cs, it could be a part of your sign up journey as well. All right, so with that, let me go back to the deck and just talk through the second scenario. The second scenario is about secure access to critical applications. In this scenario, the model here is, can I make sure that there is secure access to critical apps? So let's say I have a dashboard where I need to get access, but the dashboard application wants me to present my credential so that the dashboard can validate and attest me that yes, you are the right user. can I bring in that experience? Let me just show you a demo around this piece as well. So I'm going to go back to my browser screen, and I will go to another application. I'll bring back my phone experience. Right, so this time I'm going to show you a different flow. I'm an employee. The way I would log into my enterprise portal, I will punch in my credential. This is my normal way of logging into an enterprise portal. In this workflow, can I now give a digital card to my employee? So this is slightly different. In the previous workflow, the user was a new joinee. This is an existing workflow, and I just scanned the QR code. What I'm trying to show you here, that in this workflow, it is asking me to authenticate against an identity provider, which is Azure AD in this case. So I'm going to sign up into my Azure AD directory. Let me just specify the credential, and I don't want to present my password on the screen, so I'll move the password screen to my second monitor. Let me punch in my password credential, and yep, you can see I'm successfully authenticated. I can now accept this verified employee card. So now I have the digital card, and I can show you as an employee what all claims were given to me. So the information is visible on my VC. Now, the application in this case is AI dashboard. The AI dashboard is asking me to present a credential, and it is asking me, did you complete the AI training? Do you have the AI certificate? So I have an employee certificate. I still don't have the AI certificate. So this is another scenario I'm trying to show. So if I go back to the main page, I have a link to my learning management solution, which could be another non-federated environment. And I'll select the AI University training. The training app is saying, hey, first of all, tell me that you are a Woodgrove employee. So I can sign in and present my credential. And if I show you the authenticated app experience, it's asking me to allow the application access to my VC. And you can see the LMS experience refreshed. And now I can go through the exam. It's a basic training, so I was able to successfully pass this particular topic. It's a complex topic. I don't know how did I pass, but I just passed this training. And I can accept the credential now. So I have the AI engineer certificate as well. Now, if I go back to the AI dashboard app, the AI dashboard app was asking me to present the certificate as well as my employee card. I can scan the QR code and you can see the experience. You can build on this experience as well. So the application is asking me to present both employee as well as AI engineer certificate exam card. So you can see now the request was approved and it went through a successful presentation experience. So this is another example of what you can build. And if I go back to my deck, this was the second scenario. Secure access to applications. And the third scenario is the recovery scenario, the account recovery or account update scenario. Can I bring in that self-service experience model? I have a True ID card. Can I present that True ID card and reset my enterprise password or do an update to my enterprise account? You can see the options which we usually get in an SSPR experience. Can I build on that? So you can definitely bring in, I showed one example with True ID. You can also look at other identity proofing solutions and bring in this model within your setup. Just to move on to a customer showcase. So there are 3 case studies that we have published on our site. And if I have to just give you a high-level primer on these case studies, Kaya University is a student university kind of a model where Kaya University is in Japan, where the students were able to request their student cards as digital cards, and they were able to then present it to library, to retail stores, and now they can also present it to their employers as a model. So this is a use case that we have documented in on our public website, covering the educational sector. NHS is something Ian did mention while we were going through the user personas. Ian, anything you would like to highlight on the NHS use case?
So other than the fact that it continues, obviously, as we touched on earlier, Rohit, it's a fascinating use case and it's a great area to be working in, particularly at the moment with obviously everything that's gone on in the last year or so. So work continues. More and more trusts here in the UK are coming on board, looking at exploring how decentralized identity can be leveraged in their context. And we're working with more and more clients, using verifiable credentials week in, week out. So I'm sure there'll be more case studies, more customer success stories being published very soon.
Great. The last use case that you see on the slide is from Government of Flanders, Belgium. They had a requirement where they were looking for a digital credential medium so that the entrepreneurs can present a digital credential and can start their organization by presenting that credential. So they were looking for claims like proof of age and validation. So they onboarded this scenario with us, and it's a documented case study. So you can watch a short video on our public website, aka.ms/verify-once, where we have detailed out this particular scenario as well. So that's what I had to share with all of you. Ian, any questions that we should pick up? Anything that came to us on the chat?
Yeah, absolutely, Rohit. Well, let's have a look at some of the common questions. Just before we get to that, I mean, thank you very much. It's been a fantastic. It feels like it's flown by so quickly. It feels like 5 minutes. I'm sure it's taken a lot longer, but it's been a fascinating insight to see what Microsoft have been working on and how it's now being brought to bear. And it strikes me in a lot of the customer conversations I've had in recent years with, if you like, classic identity and access management, we're using, say, Azure AD B2C. We often look at the balance between user experience and security, and quite often there is a balance to be struck there, because if it's too easy and it's too open, then often the security guys are not happy, and vice versa. If it's overburdened with security layers, then the user experience can often be quite cumbersome. But it strikes me in all of these use cases that we've touched on today, in terms of faster onboarding, access to high value applications or sensitive work sites, and account recovery, we're sort of getting our cake and eating it, aren't we? We're having a better user experience. We're enhancing the security. It's exciting times in the world of identity. But coming back to questions, typically, you and I obviously do these briefings with our clients, etc. And I know one of the questions that you're asked a lot is, for example, I'll give you. Let's start with a couple. What's the ledger technology that Microsoft are using here for verifiable credentials? And secondly, you touched on the identity proofing with those identity proofing partners. How's that integrated into the workflows that you've talked to?
Sure. Yeah, so let me start with the first question that you had asked on the ledger and what we are using. So in this solution, we are using IAN, which is the DID method, and IAN is a decentralized, permissionless, scalable layer 2 network that sits on Bitcoin. And the way we look at it, the reason we chose that kind of a model, because it achieves scalability without including any special crypto asset token, trust validators, or any centralized consensus mechanism. So we use Bitcoin for the base layer 1, and then we have Iron. We use as I said, it's identity overlay network based on Site3 protocol. It's also open standard, and within that model, if I have to go deep, I can talk at length. It uses something called as IPFS database, where we write the operations or look for those read queries. So if you would like, if there is there are some more questions on why IAN, what is the IAN architecture, please drop us a line and we can detail that out. On our FAQ site also, there is a link to go deep on IAN. That's your first question.
Yeah.
On the identity verification and proofing model, I showed one example today where it was a JML scenario, a joiner mover leader scenario, a pre-hire who doesn't have an identity in the directory system today, how we can bring that experience, how we can make that experience better, as well as secure. As an HR person, I would like to validate that Rohit is Rohit, and it's not somebody who is just emulating Rohit and coming to the office. So with identity proofing model, joiner mover lever integration scenario is a direct thing that you can bring into the workflow. Even for your background verification process, like if you have to verify the employment history, or you have to reach out to the references for that particular candidate, you can bring in that identity verification partner, because they will have that whole process as an integrated process for you. And when you bring in that process with this verifiable credential journey, you are not getting into two solutions. Microsoft will create that aggregation for you. So in that aggregation model, Microsoft will also become like a billing gateway for you. As a part of your administration experience, you will onboard that IDV or the identity proofing partner. And with these partners that I showed on the site, we have API integrations already done. But if you have a partner that's not on the list, but it's a valid use case on your side, please feel free to reach out to us. That was one scenario. The self-service account reset or self-service account update. That's another scenario. I have a card or I have a driving license or a passport, but I would like to reset my enterprise credential with that. So that could be the second suggestion I can give for this integration. There could be more. Please do write to us and we can work with you on that. I see a question on the chat. If you're okay, Ian, I can read out that question.
Yeah, take that, please.
Yeah, so the question, let me read that question first. What are the options beyond the QR code? For example, NFC. Yes, so when you look at QR code, I look at QR code as more like a kind of a front-end facade. It actually is a deep link that verifiable credential model is presenting to the user to make the user experience better. Can we bring in options like NFC for verification? Yes, NFC, Bluetooth, all those models can be integrated, and we can bring in that experience as well. Anything you would like to add in on this?
No, it's a really good question, and we're certainly seeing.
Sorry, I think we've lost Ian on that one.
Yeah, I was just trying to check my audio.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit of internet gremlins there, so I'm back. One of the other questions we're often asked, Rohit, is around the use of wallets. So, can I, as an organization or an individual, bring my own wallet? Can I build my own wallet and use verifiable credentials?
Yes, I think I partly answered that question while I was going through that use case explanation. Yes, and yes with an asterisk. So let me explain that answer. If you are open and comfortable with developing your own wallet, the SDK is published. You can look at our Azure AD Verifiable Credential documentation. There is a link to the Android and the iOS SDK. You can build your own wallet. And when you are building your own wallet, please keep the did-ion method in mind. That is what is the reason for the asterisk. If you want to keep the model simple, to go ahead and use the Authenticator app. Another customer I know of is using that SDK and they've built a web wallet. So very much possible. You can make your own wallet. But you need to follow the open standard SDK and follow the did-ion method for it.
Absolutely, absolutely, great answer. Let's finish up with this one then this afternoon, and essentially, where's the technology at the moment from a Microsoft point of view? You know, is this available now? If I'm watching this webinar or listening in later when it's hosted on our YouTube channel, what have I got access to? What can I do? How far can I take this into production? How would you answer that one, Rohit?
Sure. So the platform is in public preview right now. Public preview means obviously you can do production pilots. And you can do production pilots for the 3 scenarios that I showed. And we have both talked about it. Public preview also means that the code is available. The Node.js sample that I spoke about, it's available. API and the documentation around the API will be published in the coming days. So once the API goes to public preview, you can consume the API as a part of your issuance as well as verification. Can I go full scale production? I think public preview has this model of getting support, but not the SLA. So there are public preview terms that are listed on our site that explains this model in at length. But surely you can do POCs and production pilots. If you're going with full scale production, reach out to us. You can either reach out to Condatis team or to me, and we can walk you through this whole journey.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us up to the end of today's session. So I'd like to first and foremost thank Yasmin and the Condatis marketing team for setting this up for us today. But Rohit, thank you very much for your time. It's been a fascinating watch and listen this afternoon. Our email addresses are on screen. If anyone would like to get in touch and learn more information, please feel free to reach out to either of us. You can also find us on LinkedIn, as you might expect. And I guess until next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.